Are you wondering how to get attention and to double your audience this year, or how to explode it if you're starting from scratch? If you are not alone. Attention is the darling of the internet. We are all looking for it. We all think it is the only thing that matters because ultimately it is the tip of the iceberg, and therefore it is the thing that we see other people doing. We see a million people teaching courses on, and we see it as the holy grail for more leads and more sales. Yes, it is important. And in this episode, I'm going to be walking you through exactly how to get as much of it as you need, but I'm also going to show you where it sits in the broader ecosystem of the marketing funnel. This is part 3 in a series that I'm doing on ye olde marketing funnel, which is how you get people from never having heard about you before all the way through to purchasing from you. I will put the links to episode 1 in the series, which is all about the marketing funnel in general, what it is, how it works, and episode 2, which is all about the middle of funnel and how to build trust and rapport, somewhere down below or somewhere easily accessible in the show notes. Let's talk all things top of funnel and, in a more sexy way of saying it, how to double or explode your audience this year. I have got 5 hot tips for you. Tip number 1 is that top of funnel comes last, not first. There are gajillions of people teaching Instagram strategy, how to grow on Pinterest, how to get more email subscribers, all of the things. And like I said, it can make you think that the very first thing that you need to be focusing on when it comes to getting more leads and more sales for an online business is getting more attention. But also, like I said, it is the tip of the iceberg. It is things that come underneath that iceberg that you can't actually see that are so essential to making sure that your marketing funnel as a whole is working the way that it should and is supposed to be. So I like to liken just focusing on that little tip of the iceberg to like being at a bar. Not that I have done this for about 20, 25 years, which is showing my age. Maybe people just do this stuff on dating apps these days. I do not know. But let's say that you're at a bar and you see like a cute guy, right? And you're like, wow, that guy kind of grabbed my attention. And then you go to talk to them and there is just like no depth, no substance underneath. They got the attention. They can't hold the attention. So that is what I liken only focusing on the very top of the funnel. So getting attention over to whatever marketing you're doing, whatever offers and business you have set up behind it. And then not actually setting all of this stuff underneath the iceberg up the right way so that you can capture attention with that attention. So with that traffic, with the people that are coming over and finding out about you. That is why I say top of funnel comes last, not first. What you want to do when you are building out the marketing for your business is to actually build it backwards. You want to start with what is my offer and who is it actually perfect for, so that you know the person that you're directing all of this marketing to in the first place. And when you get to your top of funnel, you've got the right people coming in. Then you want to be clear on, okay, so what is the sales system that I'm going to be using to sell my offers, and is it working well? Because there is absolutely no point pouring a whole heap of traffic and, people into a leaky bucket. Anybody that is a Facebook ads manager would know what I'm saying here, where, you can't run, for example, meta ads, and let's say you spend $100,000 in a day, but you have a really shoddy sales system. Maybe you have a webinar set up and it's just not converting. That is just all going to go to waste. It's going to go in the top and out the bottom. So you want to make sure that you have the bottom set up for success first. Then you want to make sure that you have a middle of funnel that is developing trust, building rapport, and getting people to know you, like you, and trust you after they have been introduced to you. So this is something that we covered in the last episode where we talked about the middle of funnel. But when somebody first comes across you, you want to have an ecosystem already set up where it's like, okay, there's that initial handshake. And then you're kind of leading them, let's say it's a party, through the door, and there are chippies and there are other people to talk to, and they're like, wow, this person is absolutely amazing. So you want to have that system set up and in place first before you start to focus on that sexy tip of the iceberg, top of funnel, and actually getting attention. Because if you don't have those things under the iceberg set up, and working first, then you're going to be putting a lot of effort into something that is ultimately not going to have the effect that you are so hoping that it will. Tip number 2 is to get really clear on what sort of business you actually want to have, because before you just blindly choose a business model, which is ultimately the foundations of what you're going to do on a day-to-day basis as an online business owner, you want to intentionally think about, okay, do I actually want a business where I need to focus really heavily on the top of funnel inside of my marketing system? Now, there is no right or wrong answer when it comes to this, but there is likely a right or a wrong answer for you. So, there are two different spectrums when it comes to the business models that are available to you on the internet. Now, the spectrums are dictated by pricing. So, if you decide that you want to have a higher ticket offer as the core offer in your business, then you're going to need fewer sales in order to reach your revenue goals. So, for example, my offer in the previous iteration of my business was a $10,000 offer. And so, for that particular offer, for example, let's say I wanted to make $100,000, I needed to sell 10 of those. Now, what that means is that it makes the business a very delivery heavy business in the sense that I'm spending a lot of time delivering and working with clients and making sure that they are beautifully served inside of the program for that price point. But on the flip side, it means that you don't need to spend as much time on top of funnel. It is a pure math equation. You don't need as many leads into, or you don't need as much traffic into the top of your funnel because you don't need as many sales to come out of the end. Now, I want you to compare that on the other end of the spectrum to a lower ticket business model. So let's say, for example, you decide that you want to create a core offer that is selling a $99 membership, right? Or even a $39 membership, let's say. What that is going to mean, and let's say, for example, on average, people stay with you for, even 10 months, right? Just for easy math's sake, that means on average, you're going to have $390 spent per customer with you for that particular offer. Memberships are complex. I don't know why I use that as an example, but let's roll with it. My point is that it's a lower ticket offer. And so what that means is that as compared to a $10,000 offer, in order to reach that $100,000 goal that you have, you are going to need many, many more sales. So in order to work out what that is, you will divide $100,000 by 390. I don't have a calculator on me, so you can do the math there. But the answer is going to be much, much, much more than if you were selling a $10,000 offer. So why is that important? Because if you are somebody that absolutely loves spending their time on what I call top of funnel, which is getting attention and bringing people over to your business and getting more and more eyeballs into the very top of your bucket so that you can filter them down to get the sales number that you need at the bottom to reach your goals, you are going to be having a field day. You might be an Instagram content creator and you absolutely love the idea of building a big audience and therefore a big email list and spending all of your time creating content. Now, I know because I have spoken to people that they love doing that. And there is a certain segment of people that love that. But equally, I know that there is another segment of people for which that sounds like the worst thing possibly to be doing. So I want you to think about, well before you actually need to start your marketing, what is the business model that you want to be rolling with? Because if you end up with a lower ticket business model or a lower ticket offer, and you finally get to the point of marketing it, and then you realize that you're going to be spending all of your time and a lot of money and energy on marketing, and it's not what you want to do, you'll probably eventually burn out and you're not going to enjoy what you're doing at all. So well before you get to the point that you are thinking about your top of funnel in the first place, I want you to get clear on, do I want to, at one end of the spectrum, have a business model that doesn't require so much top of funnel and marketing? Or do I love the idea of doing that and feel lit up by it and want to build a business completely around that? Tip 3 is don't fill your funnel, build your email list. So what do I mean by that? And why did I use such a big and weighty pause when I was talking about it? So, when I talk about the marketing funnel, I talk about top of funnel and middle of funnel and bottom of funnel. And what we're talking about here is actually getting attention and filling up your top of funnel. But where we're at inside of the online business space at the moment and the marketing world is that things don't really work in the sense of traditional funnels as they used to be anymore. So, the way that funnels used to work is that you would have somebody come in, they would maybe go through a 5-day email sequence, and then they would or wouldn't purchase at the end, but you'd get enough people purchasing at the end that it made it all worthwhile. So, in a recent report that I talked about in the last edition of this series, Google came out and said that the way that people kind of go through funnels these days is differently. And definitely check out the last episode if you want to deep dive into that. But one thing that they said relevant to this is that because people are going through and they need more time in what is called the middle of funnel, building trust, developing rapport, building that know, like, and trust, evaluating, experiencing your business before they're ever ready to purchase from you, the traditional way that funnels are set up isn't working as effectively as it used to. Now, a stat that they used in that particular report was the 95-5 stat, which was that for all of the people, even if they're perfect fit people, they're going to be perfect for your offer at some stage. When they come across your business, there's only ever about 5% of people that are ready to buy right now. So, what that means is that even if your marketing system does an incredible job and gets some of those ready to buy people to purchase straight away, that is still a very small percentage of the people that you are ultimately driving attention to your business with. And so, what does that mean? Essentially, it means that instead of trying to shove people through a funnel, and I'm not saying that those funnels shouldn't be used at all, I just don't think that we should be putting all of our eggs into that basket. What you instead want to think about when it comes to your top of funnel is that you are building your email list and not just filling a funnel with nothing at the end of it. So the goal is to keep building a bigger and a higher quality email list over time. Now, of course, back to the previous point, the higher ticket your model is, the fewer sales you need, the smaller your email list can be. And on the flip side, if you have a lower ticket offer, then the higher your email list will need to be in order to reach your goals. So really, when it comes to your top of funnel strategy at the moment, you want to get attention. And then the one goal is that you want to get them onto your email list. And from there, your email list and your middle of funnel system that we spoke about in last week's podcast episode is the thing that is nurturing and building rapport so that when you decide to run live or automated marketing campaigns, launches, whatever you want to call them, at any stage, you have a big, frothy group of people that are warmed up and much more likely to purchase from you. So you could say that your entire business is the marketing funnel. Now, this is why I am such a proponent of having a business that is simple and that is focused and that is really centered around, even though you can have other things around it, one core offer. And the reason for that is the way that the marketing world is working at the moment. You want your business to be considered that sales funnel. So regardless of where somebody comes in and when, they are ultimately going to be a candidate for whatever the core offer in your business is. If you decide not to take that advice and you start to have people coming in from multiple different lead magnets, for example, and you have multiple different offers and you have lots of things going on, it gets very difficult to approach your marketing in the way that I'm suggesting because lots of people are going to be coming in and you're going to be building your email list, but they are going to be interested in different things and it's going to dilute the whole process. So you want a simple business and you want to focus your top of funnel simply on building your email list. Now, as you start to build your email list and to nurture people, over time, you'll start to see as you start to run marketing campaigns to that email list. For example, you might invite them to a webinar or you might have a flash sale promotion, whatever the campaign is. You'll start to get an idea of how many people on your email list are actually clicking over to those offers. So that metric, that number, I call your click power. So that is the power that you are able to send via your email list and the way that you've been growing it, via how effective your actual campaign is, via what you're doing on social media and your other audience channels and the collective of all of those things, but very, very much driven by your email list, you'll start to get an idea of how many people click over to your offers. And the magic of that is that once you know what your click power is, number one, you can start to intentionally do things to try and move it forward and increase it. But number two, you'll start to get more certainty in terms of thinking about what is my revenue goal? How many people do I have on my email list? And how many of those can I reasonably assume are actually going to click over to any given promotion? And can I therefore reasonably think that I'm going to achieve my revenue goal? So I highly recommend doing it this way. Don't just think about it as filling a funnel, a 5-day funnel, and they come in and they purchase or they don't. But think about growing your email list. Now, this is ultimately growing the most important asset that I think that we can all have in online business right now, which is an inbuilt audience of people that know us, like us, and trust us enough to want to come and check out our offers and purchase them when we make offers to them. So tip number 4, when it comes to putting together a top of funnel strategy to start to get attention, is to get your message market fit right before you start to go to the sexy platforms and how to actually get attention. And is it Instagram or is it YouTube or, what is it that I'm going to focus on? Now, the reason that I say this is that there are 2 things that matter when it comes to marketing. I have spoken about this in previous episodes inside of this series, but it begs mentioning again because it is so relevant here. But number 1 is the message that you are distributing and how well there is message market fit, so that when number 2, which is the other element that comes into play here, you distribute that message, it actually lands and it has impact and it does actually garner attention. So message market fit is all about ensuring that you are solving a problem that a specific market has. Now, I have an entire series on how to get your positioning and getting all of this messaging stuff right over on Substack, and I'm going to be linking to that as well. Please check that out. It is so important. But I do want to mention it here because if you don't have it right, then we're going to get to the final tip, which is where most people start and end, and it is all going to fall flat. Now, a quick story here. My very first course was a social media course. It was called Hashtags Aren't the Answer because at that time, 2018, when it came to Instagram, people were all obsessed with hashtags and they thought that that was the whole, reason that their strategy would succeed or it would fail. And so people would come in and I would start teaching them about messaging and positioning. And they would be like, wait, I thought I was going to be learning about Instagram here. But you can't learn Instagram and you can't learn any traffic channel without actually having a message that once you put it onto that channel is actually going to resonate. And this is why I can see so many people that just spin their wheels and they're like, oh, the algorithm's not working, or this isn't working, or this isn't working. And actually, it's because the underlying message isn't right. So the really simple way that I like to explain positioning is that you want to not lead with what it is that you do because nobody cares. Nobody cares if you have a marketing plan solution. Nobody cares if you can help people get more sales. Nobody cares if you can help people with their nutrition. What they care about is that they have a specific problem and they need a solution to it. They may, for example, using nutrition as the example, be thinking that nutrition is the answer, but they may also be thinking that they're not hydrated enough and they need to drink more water. And so if you come at people and start talking about nutrition and they don't even know if it's the solution to their problem, you're going to miss them. But then even once they kind of know that, you want to make sure that rather than leading with the solution that you provide, being in this example, nutrition, you are actually applying that solution to a specific problem and then talking to that problem. So for example, let's say that postpartum mums in the first 12 months of postpartum are lacking energy and want to find a way to be able to look after themselves whilst also giving their baby what they need. And let's say that they are really struggling with a specific aspect of that. So it might be brain fog or sluggishness or whatever it is, right? I'm using an example. And yes, I have been a postpartum mum, but I'm no expert in nutrition. But let's say that that is a problem that somebody has. And therefore, you could angle your solution, which is nutrition, to solve that problem with a specific result. So that is going to be much more compelling to people when you start to talk about the problem that people are having and really getting into understanding what it's like to be a postpartum mom and understanding the challenges and the problems, and then positioning nutrition as a potential solution. Can you see how that is going to land so much more than simply saying, "Hi, I'm Jessie and I help people with their nutrition"? So that is tip number 4. Now, we are finally getting to tip number 5, which is where people usually start, not only when it comes to top of funnel and getting attention, but when it comes to marketing in general, they will start here and they will finish here. But I wanted to make sure that I was very clear on where this particular piece of the puzzle sits, because yes, although it is important, it is not the only thing and it is not the first thing that you want to be focusing on. So once we have gone through all of the other pieces of the puzzle, and I will summarize them at the end, we finally get to the point that we are going to sit down and work out what we're going to do and where we're going to distribute those beautiful messages that we've crafted to start to get the requisite number of traffic or amount of traffic or growth in email list that we need to reasonably start to achieve our revenue goals. So how do you get attention? Now, the big thing to keep in mind here is that this is absolutely not rocket science. There is ultimately only 3 ways that you can get attention. Number 1 is that you can build that attention. Number 2 is that you can borrow the attention from other people that already have it. And number 3 is that you can buy attention. We tend to overcomplicate this stuff. We tend to sometimes go in gung-ho and try to do all of the things at once and not do any of them well. But that is ultimately the 3 different options. The secret here is that they all work. And the other secret is that you should just choose one to start and absolutely nail it. So let's go through the 3 different options for getting attention and to drive traffic, and how they work and how you can actually set them up to work inside your business. So as I'm going through each of these, you likely already focus on one of them. Maybe you do it well or you don't do it well. But I want you to almost think that you're starting with a clean slate here. And I want you to think, okay, if I was starting from scratch here with what I know now, what would be the traffic getting channel that is going to feel most aligned with me? Let's run through the menu of options, starting with building. So building is how you build your own channel, essentially. So it is how you consistently publish content that is set up in a specific way to garner attention and traffic and new eyeballs and get them over to your platforms and hopefully eventually onto your email list as well. Now, I want to be really clear here. When I talk about building as a way to fill your top of funnel, this is not just simply posting on social media. In the last episode, I talked about middle of funnel. Middle of funnel is what happens after you've gotten attention and you're building know, like, and trust and developing rapport with people. And that also requires that you publish content. Publishing content and building for the purposes of filling your top of funnel is actually different to publishing content to nurture in your middle of funnel. And so I feel like building as a strategy for growth actually gets a bad rap some of the time because people are employing nurture and middle of funnel strategies to build and they're not really seeing any growth and it's all too slow and it's not working for them. So I do want to make that distinction up front. So if you decide that you want to go with build, it's likely going to be something that is exciting to you because you enjoy creating content. Now, it kind of goes without saying that if you don't like creating content, well, number 1, you definitely shouldn't have a content-focused business. But number 2, it's likely going to be suitable to someone that wants to be a content creator. and really wants to drive the volume of traffic that being a content creator essentially necessitates in order to get the volume that you need in order to sell your higher ticket offers. Now, it kind of goes without saying that if you decide that you want to choose building as your primary way of getting attention, you got to enjoy creating content. And if you don't enjoy creating content, well, it's actually going to be quite difficult for you because you want to, inside of these knowledge industries that we're in, have a way that you're distributing your thought leadership and you want to, feel excited by that. But the nuance here is that if you're choosing a build approach to grow and you're not going to focus on the borrow or the buy channels, it is going to take up your time. And so you want to make sure that that is something that you are happy and excited by spending your days doing from a growth perspective. So there are essentially 4 steps to a build strategy and using it in a way that is actually going to fill your top of funnel. So number 1 is that you want to choose a discoverability platform to publish on. Not all channels are discoverability platforms. So a really easy and simple example of a discoverability platform is TikTok. So it is where you can easily kind of get in front of new people. It pushes that content out to new people. You can capture attention, but it's not so great at that middle of funnel and nurturing, etc., because of the way that the algorithm is set up. Instagram is an example of a discoverability platform that also kind of works well as a middle of funnel nurture platform. It just depends on the type of content that you are putting on there. Now, a simple hack that I have for choosing a discoverability platform, if you want to go all in on building in order to fill your top of funnel, is choosing a discoverability platform that also doubles as a nurture platform. Now, yes, Instagram does it to a certain extent, but there are 2 platforms that really do this. Number 1 is YouTube. So YouTube is a platform that allows you to create long form content. And absolutely, you can create nurture content, middle of funnel content that's sharing your unique perspective. But also, it is intrinsically a discoverability platform because you can be discovered via search engine optimization on the YouTube platform. And so, depending on the type of content that you're actually putting out on YouTube, it can be both a discoverability platform and a middle of funnel nurture platform. Another example of this is Substack. So if you want to create written content in the form of blogs and emails, for example, to a certain extent, if you put those up in terms of blogs on your website, you're going to get search engine optimization. You could argue that the efficacy of that in the world that we're moving into with AI is maybe not as effective as it used to be. But from a discoverability perspective, you do get a little bit of that if you really optimize for SEO, etc. Not so much if you have a newsletter. It's just going out to the people that have signed up to receive the newsletter, and you're not actually getting any of that new attention. You still need to get the eyeballs. That is solved by Substack. So Substack is essentially a social media platform where you can be creating blogs that are then sent out as newsletters. But it also has its own algorithm, its own social media feed. It also has its own social media feed, and there is inbuilt discoverability. It also has its own social media feed, and there is inbuilt discoverability via recommendations where Substack writers can recommend other Substack writers, and you can start to get a bit of a flywheel effect and you can start to really grow. So yes, you're creating middle of funnel nurture content, but you're also getting discovered. So it's kind of like 2 birds, 1 stone. So once you have a discoverability channel, you want to focus on the right type of content for growth. So there is a difference between content that you create to nurture and to develop your unique perspective and to really kind of extrapolate the know, like, and trust. And there is content that you're just creating to grow. So generally, the content that you're creating to grow is going to be going to have like hooks that are a little bit more standout, that are really grabbing attention. They're really those things that if a cold person that has never heard about you before came across a particular piece of content, they would stop their scroll. So it can be things like how I grew my Instagram following by 10,000 in 6 days and, things that really stand out. Whereas, for example, I've hosted an Instagram carousel yesterday about whether funnels are dead or not. And it was a 20 slide sharing my unique perspective. And really, that is not going to be something, and that was reflected in my insights, that new people are going to come across. It is going to be more something that is going to nurture the existing people. Now, this can become a little bit of a trap on some discoverability platforms if you are using it both for top of funnel and for middle of funnel. And the reason for that is that, for example, and I remember there were quite big YouTube influencers on the platform that fell into this trap. You have a YouTube video that goes completely viral because you've done such a great job of creating a growth focused piece of content. And then you have a whole heap of people come in, and then you need to create more of that content in order to feed the beast. And actually, it kind of is a bit of a self defeating thing because you're not then creating the content that you ultimately wanted to create to kind of build up the intention that you got onto the platform for, which may have been middle of funnel and unique perspective and all of the things that may not get those initial clicks, but that build that know, like, and trust. So the best way to approach this, if you do have a platform that you want to use for discoverability and for nurture, is to make sure that you just have a mix of both of those, knowing that each piece of content is going to do a different job. Number 3 is that you want to understand the unique nuances of the platform that you choose. Now, this is where I actually think that it can be useful to learn from, buy a course from someone that is a subject matter expert in that particular platform. There is always going to be nuances and ways that you can grow faster per platform. And it's not the same for all platforms, even though, for example, what I'm talking about now are timeless marketing principles. The way that they apply to TikTok is very different to, for example, the way that they apply to Instagram or to YouTube or to Substack. And then finally, you want to publish consistently. Now, there is a difference between publishing for growth and publishing for kind of just, nurturing and just having a presence. You want to have a growth-focused publishing schedule. And yes, that does require more, but it can't be at the sacrifice of quality, which brings me back to my first point around if you want to use build as your primary strategy, you need to make sure that you love creating content. So now let's move on to number 2 in your menu of options for getting attention, which is borrowing traffic. So this is partnering with people, places, and publications that already have the traffic that you want to get in front of and collaborating on a win-win basis. So this is great if you have more time than money, if the idea of building relationships and growing this way is something that feels appealing to you, and if you're okay with things being a little bit less kind of precise in terms of the math behind what results you can expect. So I say that because, with something like ads, yes, there is variability, but you can start to make assumptions based on data. With your borrow strategies, even though, for example, inside of my traffic playbook course, I actually give you pretty detailed spreadsheets on how to start to reverse engineer into some assumptions for what results you might get from borrow strategies. You still ultimately have a little bit of we'll kind of just see what happens. So how do you roll out a borrow strategy inside of your business? I should mention with all of these, I have all of the templates, all of the step-by-step in extreme detail, everything that you need to do to roll out whatever strategy you choose in any of these categories inside of my traffic playbook course. And I'm going to put the link somewhere in the show notes. But for the borrow side of things, just to break it down simply, there are 3 different steps. So number 1 is I suggest that you get a spreadsheet, or you can use mine if you have Traffic Playbook, and make a list of 100 people, places, and publications that have the audience that you want to get in front of. Now, there is some nuance here because you don't want to make a list of people that do the exact same thing that you do. There is 4 different categories that you want to think about where you're kind of okay, they have my audience, but they're talking to them in a different way. And that is the magic and the nuance there. Once you have that list, you are going to strategically start to develop relationships. So this is where you are online networking, you're connecting on social media, you're making friends, you're doing it in a strategic way, so that when you get to step 3, you can start to strategically pitch win-win partnerships. Now, what is the right partnership is going to depend on the relationship. But the bottom line with it is that it needs to be a win for them and it needs to be a win for you. So, for example, can you provide free content to someone and they're desperately looking for that, but that is giving you some exposure to their audience? Can you get their lead magnet in front of your audience and in return, you're doing that for them? There's a whole heap of different strategies when it comes to borrowing, but the key is making it a win-win. I cannot tell you how many pitches I get, for example, for podcast appearances, etc., where they just talk all about themselves. And I'm like, wait, what was in this for me in the first place? So you want to make sure that you don't do that. Now, moving on to number 3, the third in the menu of options for getting attention, there is buying. So this is paying money for attention. This has been around for a very long time. It is called advertising. And so the steps that you want to follow if you want to go with this strategy. Number 1 is that you want to choose an ad platform. So is it Meta ads? Is it Pinterest ads? Is it YouTube ads? Is it sponsorships? What is the actual advertising platform? Number 2 is that you want to make sure that you have a really valuable lead magnet that is strategically later going to lead people to your core offer, but that when people see it, they're like, yes, I need to have this ready to go. And then number 3 is that you actually want to run ads to it. Now, there is math involved in this. I have all of my fancy spreadsheets in Traffic Playbook for how to actually reverse engineer into the math. I find this fun. Not everybody does. But the way that you're going to approach it is that you are going to run ads. You're going to get people to download the lead magnet. Now, there is a 4th step that is like more advanced, but is really when you start to pour fuel on the fire. And this is where after somebody downloads the lead magnet, you have a low cost offer, let's say $27, $37, $39, on the thank you page that is perfectly aligned to that lead magnet that they can purchase and that is an easy yes for them. Now, as you build out what you have in that little system, I also recommend that you have an order bump, which is an optional do you want fries with that when somebody purchases. And you have something on the thank you page if somebody does purchase it with a different offer called an upsell. And collectively, what those things will do is help you to offset or even get paid to grow your list. Now, I talk about this in a course called Paid to Grow. It's literally get paid to grow your list. And the way that that can really help you when it comes to attention is that it becomes this like little thing that just runs itself. So you're paying for ads, they're downloading your lead magnet, you are offsetting that ad spend with that paid to grow offer. And therefore, you just kind of set and forget. As long as you've got your middle of funnel set up to nurture over time, it's kind of doing your top of funnel for you. And I absolutely love that strategy. That is a strategy that I have used in my own business forever. And it has been the thing that just lets it all roll even when I'm not there. Now, the secret is that all of these strategies work. All of them work. There will always be somebody that's like, you need to do this thing or you need to do this thing. And likely it is because they are a marketer and they are selling you their thing. They will also likely be saying, but this thing doesn't work. And that is because they are a marketer and they are trying to sell you that their thing works, right? So all of them work. That is the secret, but the secret is making them work for you. And so here is my final tip for you when it comes to setting up your top of funnel. I want you to choose one strategy. So let's say that you've decided to go all in on build. Let's say that you've chosen Instagram. Now, this is something I did recently, for example, and just the intentionality and following what I'm about to tell you grew my email list and grew my Instagram following as well by about 1,000 new people. And that is because I chose one thing and I was intentional. So once you've chosen your one thing, you're going to want to follow the steps that I've outlined for that one thing inside of here. Now, if you want to go into much more detail, definitely grab Traffic Playbook because I do that there. But I've given you a bit of a skeleton here. You're then going to choose one consistent action that you're going to take. So for example, let's say that it's Instagram. What is your publishing cadence? That is your one action. Then you're going to choose a metric that is going to tell you whether you're succeeding or not. Now, I like to use an on-platform and an off-platform metric. So for example, reach and then subscribers, right? In that example. And so you're going to track those numbers. Now, if you're not taking the action, it's going to be very clear why it's not working because you're not taking the action. But if you are taking the action and it's not working, then you can start to look at the numbers and be like, whoa, okay, so why did it dip here? Get curious, like what was it that was working? What was it that it wasn't working? And make a little bit of a plan every week to iterate and succeed. And I know that that doesn't sound sexy. I know that you want some secret hack, but that is the hack. It is the people that just focus on one thing and do that one thing. Yes, they take the action and then they analyze the results and they look at the results as well. So that is how you do traffic in a 2,000 word synopsis that I wrote. I also will be putting the words for this over on Substack as well. So definitely go and check out the Substacky stack. But just to summarize what those points are, number one is that I want you to be clear that top of funnel sits within the greater marketing funnel sphere. This is episode 3 in a series. So definitely check out episode 1 that covers the marketing funnel in general, and the episode before this one, which dives into middle of funnel beforehand. So you can understand where top of funnel sits in the big ecosystem. But then my 5 tips summarized from this particular episode. Number 1 is that top of funnel comes last, not first. You want to build things backwards. You want to build out what your offer is, what you're selling, how you're selling it. Then you want to have a middle of funnel ecosystem that's ready to go. And then you want to start to develop your top of funnel. Number 2 is that you want to be clear on which business model feels most aligned. Do you want to have a business model where you're spending a lot of time at the top of funnel? Or do you want to have a business model where, yeah, you do a little bit of it, but you don't actually need that much traffic to achieve your goals? Neither is right, but there is a right answer for you. Number 3 is that you don't want to fill your funnel. You want to build your email list. So I want you to think of your entire business like a sales funnel. It is essentially where you are building your email list, then you have a nurture system set up, and then you are making offers to that email list. Where we are at in this day and age, it is much more difficult just to fill a 5-day funnel and hope to reach all of your goals. Number 4 is that you want to get message, market, match right before you start to actually distribute that via your chosen top of funnel activity. If you don't have that sorted, it is going to be like pouring water into a sieve. It's not going to work because the message won't resonate. And then finally, you're going to work on your top of funnel. You're going to choose from a build, a borrow, or a buy strategy. You're going to follow the steps that I outlined in this podcast episode. And if you want to go deeper on all of it, my Traffic Playbook course is everything that you need for filling that top of funnel. It shows you how to do it in a build it backwards way. So I talk about how to actually build out how much traffic you need, making sure that you have all of that sorted, how to build out a middle of funnel ecosystem, and then how to pour fuel on the fire and to get the attention that your business needs and it deserves. I'll put a link inside of the show notes. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, please make sure that you follow along for more. And until next time, I'll see you then.